In today's episode, we're looking at These People Got Their Heads Bitten Off by Deadly Predators. From a trail runner who took one wrong turn on Vancouver Island to a researcher whose morning walk in India became his last, we start in the Sundarbans, where one photographer's perfect shot turned into a nightmare. It was July 15, 2017, in the dense mangrove channels of the Sundarbans National Park, West Bengal, India. The morning mist hung low over the brackish waterways as the tide receded, exposing muddy banks lined with twisted mangrove roots. This UNESCO World Heritage Site, spanning over 10,000 square kilometers, represents one of the largest mangrove forests on Earth, where the Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Meghna rivers meet the Bay of Bengal. The labyrinthine waterways create a maze of channels, some barely wide enough for small boats, while others stretch hundreds of meters across. Ancient trees rise from the water on stilted roots, their canopy so dense that sunlight barely penetrates to the murky surface below. Vanessa Klein, a 34-year-old wildlife photographer from Oregon, had dreamed of capturing the Sundarbans' unique biodiversity for 3 years. She had saved meticulously for this expedition, researching locations and building her portfolio. Accompanied by her husband Mark, a 36-year-old software engineer who supported her passion despite his cautious nature, and their children Emma, 8, and Jake, 6. The family had hired an unlicensed local operator offering cheaper rates than official tour companies. Their boatman, a 42-year-old fisherman named Ravi, who supplemented his income during tourist season, lacked proper safety training, but knew the waterways from decades of fishing these channels. He had warned them repeatedly about staying inside the vessel near narrow creek edges, pointing to fresh pug marks pressed into a nearby mudbank and subtle ripples beneath the mangrove roots. The family had already spent 4 days photographing spotted deer, saltwater crocodiles, and exotic birds, growing increasingly confident in these seemingly peaceful waters. Recent local reports mentioned increased tiger movement in the area, but the family's excitement about spotting rare birds and saving money overshadowed the mounting warnings. The Bengal tiger stands as one of nature's most formidable predators, weighing up to 660 pounds and measuring over 10 feet in length. These magnificent cats are exceptional swimmers, using the Sundarbans' intricate waterway system as hunting corridors. Unlike their mainland counterparts, Sundarbans tigers have adapted to a semi-aquatic lifestyle, often ambushing prey from water or dense mangrove cover. Their powerful jaws deliver crushing bite force, while their stealth and patience make them nearly invisible until the moment of attack. These apex predators have learned to hunt in tidal zones, timing their movements with the ebb and flow of water levels. The Sundarbans tigers are particularly aggressive, having developed a reputation as man-eaters due to the scarcity of traditional prey and frequent human encroachment. As the boat idled in a narrow creek surrounded by towering mangroves, Vanessa spotted a vibrant kingfisher perched on the opposite bank. The bird's brilliant blue and orange plumage caught the filtered morning light perfectly. Despite the boatman's urgent protests and Mark's concerned objections, she stepped into the knee-deep water, camera raised, determined to capture the perfect shot. The murky channel, barely 30 feet wide, seemed harmless in the morning light. The water felt warm against her legs as she waded deeper, focused entirely on the colorful bird through her viewfinder. Unknown to Vanessa, a massive male Bengal tiger had been tracking their boat from the dense mangrove roots for over 20 minutes, using the water margin to approach undetected. The tiger's attack was swift and devastating. In 3 powerful bounds, the 400-pound predator closed the distance, emerging from the tangled roots like a striped phantom. The initial impact drove Vanessa underwater with tremendous force, her expensive camera disappearing into the murky depths. The tiger's massive jaws secured a crushing grip at her throat and nape, its powerful canines penetrating deep into vital neck structures. The bite compressed major blood vessels and damaged her cervical spine. The predator's violent shaking motion caused catastrophic trauma to her neck and airway, leading to rapid incapacitation as her body went limp. Within seconds, the tiger began dragging her lifeless body toward the impenetrable mangrove thicket, where the dense root system provided perfect cover. Mark and the children watched in horror from the boat as their wife and mother vanished into the green maze. Emma screamed while Jake stood frozen in shock. The boatman immediately started the engine and retreated to safety, knowing that approaching the kill site would only invite further tragedy. Local authorities launched an investigation into the incident, though recovery efforts were severely hampered by dangerous conditions and the tiger's retreat into nearly inaccessible terrain. Forest Department officials worked with local police to coordinate search efforts, but the dense mangrove maze made recovery extremely hazardous. The tragedy sparked renewed discussions about unlicensed tour operators in the Sundarbans, with wildlife officials emphasizing the importance of using authorized guides with proper safety training. The incident highlighted ongoing dangers faced by tourists seeking budget alternatives to regulated wildlife tours. The Klein family returned to Oregon devastated. Their dream vacation transformed into an unimaginable nightmare. While the Klein family grieved their devastating loss in the Sundarbans, thousands of miles away on Vancouver Island, another experienced outdoorsman was preparing for a routine trail run. Elliot Chambers, a 29-year-old with years of backcountry experience, had no idea his solo run would bring him face-to-face with one of North America's deadliest predators. It was October 9th, 2016, in the dense backcountry forests of Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada. The overcast afternoon sky filtered through towering Douglas firs and western red cedars, creating shadows along the narrow forest service trail. This remote wilderness section stretched for miles without human habitation, where thick understory of salal, ferns, and devil's club reduced visibility to mere meters. The trail wound through steep terrain with tight switchbacks that created natural blind spots around every bend. Light drizzle had begun that morning, making the forest floor soft and silent underfoot. Perfect conditions for both predator and prey to move undetected. Elliot Chambers, a 29-year-old outdoor enthusiast from Victoria, had been trail running these backcountry routes for over 5 years. His lean build and exceptional fitness made him ideally suited for Vancouver Island's challenging wilderness terrain. That morning, he had spoken with a local forestry worker who mentioned fresh deer sign along the ridge trail, noting unusual activity in the area. 2 hikers had also reported spotting a large cougar crossing the trail at dusk the previous evening, though such sightings were common enough not to deter experienced outdoorsmen like Elliot. He had chosen this particular route for its solitude and challenging elevation changes, planning a solo 15-kilometer loop through old-growth forest. Recent logging activity in adjacent areas had pushed wildlife deeper into protected forest corridors, concentrating predators and prey along the remaining wilderness trails. The cougar represents one of North America's most efficient predators. These solitary cats can weigh up to 200 pounds and measure 8 feet from nose to tail, with powerful hindquarters built for explosive acceleration. Cougars are ambush hunters, relying on stealth and surprise rather than sustained pursuit. Their padded paws allow silent movement through forest terrain, while their tawny coat provides perfect camouflage among fallen leaves and dappled shadows. These apex predators typically hunt deer, elk, and smaller mammals, but will opportunistically target humans when circumstances align. Cougars prefer attacking from behind or above, using powerful jaws to deliver a killing bite to the neck or skull base. Their retractable claws and muscular forelimbs maintain control of struggling prey while positioning for the fatal bite. Vancouver Island supports one of North America's highest cougar populations, with an estimated 600 to 800 individuals roaming the island's diverse ecosystems. As Elliot approached a tight switchback where the trail curved sharply around a massive cedar stump, he maintained his steady pace despite reduced visibility. The narrow corridor was flanked by dense salal bushes and fallen logs, creating perfect wildlife cover. Unknown to the runner, a large male cougar had been feeding on a deer carcass approximately 200 meters off the main trail for 2 days. The cat had detected Elliot's approach from several hundred meters away and positioned itself in thick understory adjacent to the blind corner. The attack unfolded with terrifying speed and precision. As Elliot rounded the switchback, the 150-pound cougar launched itself from dense vegetation barely 10 feet away. The cat's powerful hindquarters propelled it through the air in a single bound, covering the distance before Elliot could react. The initial impact struck him from behind, the cougar's front claws gripping his shoulders and upper back. The collision's force drove Elliot forward and down, his momentum carrying both predator and prey several meters along the trail. The cougar immediately repositioned itself, using powerful forelimbs to control Elliot's upper body, while hind claws raked across his back and sides. Within seconds, the cat secured a grip on the back of Elliot's neck, its powerful jaws clamping down just below his skull base. The cougar's canine teeth, measuring over an inch in length, penetrated deep into cervical vertebrae and surrounding tissue. The crushing bite force compressed vital blood vessels and severed the spinal cord, causing immediate paralysis and loss of consciousness within moments. The predator maintained its grip until the prey was completely subdued, then began dragging the body toward denser cover. The attack site remained undisturbed for nearly 2 days before another trail runner discovered evidence of the struggle. Drag marks and blood traces led searchers toward the cougar's feeding site, though dense terrain made recovery operations extremely dangerous. British Columbia conservation officers launched a comprehensive investigation into the fatal attack, working with wildlife biologists to track the responsible cougar. Recovery teams successfully retrieved Elliot's remains after careful safety planning. The incident prompted temporary trail closures, while officials searched for the predatory cat. Within 72 hours, conservation officers had located and destroyed a large male cougar believed responsible for the attack. The tragedy highlighted inherent risks of solo recreation in cougar habitat, leading to renewed public education campaigns about wildlife safety. Elliot's family established a memorial fund promoting backcountry safety education. While Vancouver Island mourned Elliot's tragic loss, thousands of miles away off South Africa's coast, marine researcher Trent Gallagher was preparing for a routine dive. He had no idea his work in murky estuary waters would bring him face to face with one of the ocean's deadliest predators. It was February 21st, 2018, at the Umgeni River mouth in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, where murky river waters met the warm Indian Ocean. The estuary created a mixing zone of fresh and salt water, with strong currents carrying sediment that reduced underwater visibility to less than 2 meters. Mangrove-lined banks gave way to sandy shallows that dropped sharply into deeper channels, creating perfect hunting grounds for apex predators. The incoming tide pushed brackish water upstream, stirring up the bottom and creating turbulent conditions that made the water appear chocolate brown. Baitfish schools moved nervously through the current seams, barely visible beneath the murky surface. Trent Gallagher, a 31-year-old marine biologist from Sydney, had arrived at the estuary with his girlfriend Sarah Mitchell, a 28-year-old underwater photographer who assisted with his research. The couple had been working together for 3 years, documenting fish assemblages in South African estuaries as part of Trent's doctoral research. They had chosen this location during the tidal window, when fish activity peaked, hoping to collect samples from species that used the estuary as a nursery. Their small aluminum skiff was anchored near the channel edge, equipped with sampling nets and basic safety equipment. A local angler fishing from the nearby jetty had warned them about the murky conditions and recent baitfish activity, mentioning that predatory fish had been unusually active. The man had noticed large shadows moving through deeper water and advised caution, though such warnings were common in South African waters where sharks were a constant presence. Bull shark stands as one of the ocean's most dangerous predators, capable of thriving in both saltwater and freshwater environments. These powerful sharks can reach lengths of 11 feet and weigh over 500 pounds, with a stocky build that gives them their distinctive appearance. Bull sharks possess powerful bite force and massive jaw muscles, capable of crushing bone and cartilage. Unlike many shark species that prefer clear ocean waters, bull sharks actively hunt in murky estuaries, rivers, and shallow coastal areas, where their prey cannot see them approaching. Their ability to regulate salt levels allows them to travel far upstream in river systems, making them particularly dangerous to humans who assume they are safe in brackish water. Bull sharks are aggressive, opportunistic feeders, known for unpredictable behavior and tendency to investigate anything entering their territory. Their gray coloration provides perfect camouflage in turbid water, while their powerful tail fin allows explosive bursts of speed during attacks. Trent had been working from the boat's edge for nearly an hour, using long-handled sampling equipment to collect data near the current seam. The research required him to occasionally step into knee-deep water to reposition gear, though he remained close to the skiff due to poor visibility. Sarah monitored equipment from the boat, occasionally photographing when visibility allowed. The turbid conditions made it impossible to see more than an arm's length in any direction, forcing Trent to work by feel as he collected samples. Unknown to the researchers, a large female bull shark had been patrolling the estuary for several days, drawn by abundant baitfish and scent trails. The shark had detected unusual vibrations created by Trent's movements from over 100 meters away. The attack came without warning from the murky depths. The 300-pound bull shark approached along the bottom contour, using turbidity as perfect cover. In a sudden explosive burst of speed, she launched herself upward, her massive jaws opening to reveal rows of triangular, serrated teeth. The initial strike caught Trent across the upper torso and left shoulder as he leaned over the boat's edge, the shark's powerful bite crushing through his wetsuit and into flesh beneath. The impact drove him backward into the water, blood immediately clouding the already murky surface. The shark's teeth sliced through muscle and bone as she shook her massive head from side to side. Trent's left arm was nearly severed at the shoulder, major arteries torn open and pumping blood into surrounding water. The shark released her grip momentarily before attacking again, targeting his torso and neck area. Her second bite caused catastrophic damage to his chest cavity, puncturing both lungs and crushing several ribs. The massive blood loss and trauma to vital organs caused rapid incapacitation. The shark continued her feeding behavior, attracted by blood and thrashing movements. Sarah immediately started the engine, but the shark's continued aggressive presence made any rescue attempt impossible. She could only watch helplessly as the attack continued. The KwaZulu-Natal Sharks Board launched an immediate investigation into the fatal attack, working with local authorities to assess ongoing risks. The incident prompted temporary closures of the estuary, while shark nets were deployed in adjacent areas. Marine biologists noted that bull shark attacks in estuaries were relatively rare but extremely dangerous due to the species' aggressive nature. The tragedy highlighted risks faced by researchers working in South African waters. Trent's research data was compiled and published posthumously, contributing to ongoing conservation efforts. His family established a scholarship fund for marine biology students. While South Africa mourned Trent's tragic loss to a bull shark deep in Brazil's Pantanal wetlands, wildlife enthusiast Megan Holt was preparing for an evening boat excursion. She had no idea her riverside stop would bring her face to face with South America's deadliest big cat. It was May 28, 2015, in the northern Pantanal wetlands of Mato Grosso, Brazil, where the world's largest tropical wetland stretched endlessly under the early evening light. The gallery forest along the riverbank created a dense canopy of fig trees and palm species that overhung the dark water, their massive root systems forming natural caves along the muddy shoreline. The air was thick with humidity and alive with the sounds of caimans bellowing, howler monkeys calling, and countless bird species settling for the night. This remote section remained largely untouched, accessible only by small boats navigating narrow channels. Megan Holt, a 26-year-old marketing coordinator from Denver, had arrived at a remote eco-lodge 3 days earlier with her college roommate Jessica Torres, a 25-year-old elementary school teacher who shared Megan's passion for wildlife photography. The friends had been planning this adventure for over a year, saving money and researching locations to photograph the Pantanal's incredible biodiversity. Their local boat operator, a weathered 38-year-old guide named Carlos, had been taking them to prime wildlife viewing locations each evening when animal activity peaked. That evening, Carlos had brought them to a secluded river bend where he had recently observed caiman activity and fresh jaguar tracks. The guide had warned them about staying in the boat along overhung banks, explaining that jaguars often used root systems as resting areas. Fresh claw marks on several trees and remains of a partially consumed caiman carcass served as clear indicators that a large predator had been active recently. The jaguar stands as South America's apex predator and the third largest cat species in the world. These powerful felines can weigh up to 350 pounds and measure over 8 feet from nose to tail, with stocky, muscular builds that make them incredibly strong swimmers and climbers. Unlike other big cats that typically target the throat or neck, jaguars possess the strongest bite force of any cat species, capable of crushing skulls and piercing turtle shells. Their hunting strategy often involves a single devastating bite to the head or neck that instantly kills prey through massive cranial trauma. Jaguars are excellent swimmers and frequently hunt along riverbanks, preying on caimans, capybaras, and other aquatic animals. Their spotted coat provides perfect camouflage among dappled forest shadows, while their silent movement makes them nearly invisible until the moment of attack. As their small boat drifted silently along the riverbank, Megan spotted what appeared to be an exotic bird perched in the lower branches of a massive fig tree. Excited by the photographic opportunity, she asked Carlos to bring the boat closer to shore. Despite the guide's reluctance and Jessica's concerns, Megan stepped onto the muddy bank to reposition herself for a better angle. The riverbank was soft and treacherous, with exposed roots and deep mud that made footing unstable. She moved approximately 10 meters from the boat, focusing intently on adjusting her camera settings. Unknown to Megan, a large male jaguar had been resting in the dense root system of the very tree she was photographing, using the natural cave formed by the massive buttress roots as a daytime shelter. The 250-pound cat had been aware of the boat's presence, but became alarmed when Megan approached its resting site at close range. The attack was swift and devastating. The jaguar, surprised and feeling cornered in its shelter, emerged from the root system like a spotted shadow, covering the 10-meter distance in 3 powerful bounds. His massive paws struck her from behind, the impact driving her face first into the muddy bank and knocking her camera into the shallow water. Before she could react, the jaguar's powerful jaws clamped down on the back of her head and neck. The cat's powerful canine teeth penetrated deep into her skull at the base of the neck, the crushing bite force instantly fracturing her occipital bone and cervical vertebrae. The jaguar's signature killing technique involved maintaining pressure while shaking his massive head, causing catastrophic damage to her brainstem and spinal cord. Death occurred within seconds as the bite severed vital neural pathways and compressed major blood vessels. The jaguar then began dragging Megan's lifeless body toward the dense undergrowth. Jessica screamed in horror from the boat as she witnessed her best friend disappear into the shadows with the massive cat. Carlos immediately started the engine and backed away from the shore. Brazilian environmental authorities launched an investigation into the fatal jaguar attack, working with local wildlife officials to assess the incident. The tragedy prompted discussions about safety protocols at eco-lodges throughout the Pantanal, with many operators implementing stricter guidelines about guest behavior near riverbanks. Wildlife biologists noted that jaguar attacks on humans were extremely rare, with very few documented fatal attacks in the region in recent decades. The jaguar's defensive reaction to perceived territorial intrusion was identified as a contributing factor. Megan's family established a wildlife conservation fund in her memory. While Brazil's conservation community reflected on Megan's tragic loss to one of the Pantanal's apex predators, thousands of miles away in central India's dense forests, nature enthusiast Colby Sinclair was preparing for a routine morning walk. He had no idea his path through the scrubland would bring him face to face with one of Asia's most unpredictable bears. It was March 6, 2018, in the buffer zone near Satpura Tiger Reserve in Madhya Pradesh, central India, where dense scrublands stretched for kilometers between protected forest areas and rural villages. The morning haze hung low over the landscape, creating limited visibility through thick lantana bushes, thorny acacia, and scattered teak trees. Narrow footpaths wound through the scrubby terrain, connecting remote research stations with local communities. But the dense vegetation created natural corridors and blind spots that made wildlife encounters unpredictable. Colby Sinclair, a 33-year-old wildlife researcher from Johannesburg, had been working in central India for 6 months as part of an international conservation project, documenting human-wildlife conflict patterns. His years of fieldwork experience in African bush country prepared him for challenging terrain, though the dense Indian scrubland presented unique navigation difficulties. That morning, he was making what should have been a routine 20-minute walk to check equipment at a nearby monitoring station, a trip he had made dozens of times before. A forest guard had mentioned fresh termite mound disturbances and bear sign along the path the previous evening, noting unusual digging activity near a large hollow tree. 2 local villagers had chosen to detour around the lantana thickets that morning due to poor visibility and recent animal activity. The path Colby chose wound through particularly dense sections where thorny vegetation created a narrow corridor with multiple blind corners. The sloth bear stands as one of Asia's most unpredictable and dangerous large mammals, despite its primarily insectivorous diet. These shaggy black bears can weigh up to 400 pounds and measure 6 feet in length, with powerful claws designed for tearing apart termite mounds and anthills. Unlike other bear species, sloth bears are known for their aggressive defensive behavior when surprised at close range, often attacking without provocation rather than fleeing. Their poor eyesight and hearing make them prone to surprise encounters, while their powerful forelimbs and razor-sharp claws can inflict devastating injuries. Sloth bears possess a distinctive long snout adapted for sucking insects from their nests, but their strong jaws are equally capable of delivering crushing bites. These bears are primarily nocturnal, but often forage during early morning hours, particularly around termite colonies where insect activity is highest. As Colby advanced through the narrow path where lantana and thorn bushes created a natural tunnel, he moved quietly to avoid disturbing wildlife, unaware that his silent approach would prove fatal. The vegetation was so dense that visibility extended only a few meters in any direction. Unknown to the researcher, a large male sloth bear had spent the night foraging on a massive termite colony located just 20 meters off the main path. The 280-pound bear had been feeding intensively for several hours, using his powerful claws to tear apart the earthen mound. As dawn approached, the bear had begun moving toward a familiar resting spot near a large hollow tree. The animal's poor eyesight meant he was unaware of Colby's approach until the human was within striking distance. The encounter occurred at a sharp bend where the vegetation formed a complete visual barrier. Colby rounded the corner at his normal walking pace, just as the sloth bear emerged from thick brush barely 5 meters away. The bear, startled and perceiving an immediate threat to his escape route, reacted with explosive aggression. In a single powerful charge, the massive animal closed the distance before Colby could react. The bear's initial impact struck Colby in the chest and shoulders, the force of the 280-pound animal knocking him backward onto the rocky ground. The bear immediately followed up with devastating swipes from his front paws, his powerful 3-inch claws raking across Colby's torso and arms, tearing through clothing and flesh. The bear then secured a grip on Colby's head and neck area, his powerful jaws clamping down with crushing force. The animal's canine teeth penetrated deep into the skull and cervical vertebrae, while his molars crushed bone and soft tissue. The bear's violent shaking motion caused catastrophic trauma to the brainstem and spinal cord, severing vital neural connections. Death occurred rapidly from massive head and neck trauma, as the injuries resulted in immediate loss of consciousness. The bear continued brief defensive behavior before retreating into the dense vegetation. The attack site remained undisturbed for nearly 4 hours before a forest patrol discovered evidence of the encounter. Madhya Pradesh Forest Department officials launched an immediate investigation into the fatal sloth bear attack, working with wildlife biologists to assess the circumstances. The incident prompted temporary restrictions on solo travel through dense scrubland areas, with new protocols requiring researchers to work in pairs. Wildlife experts noted that sloth bear attacks, while relatively rare, were often fatal due to the species' aggressive defensive behavior. The tragedy highlighted ongoing challenges faced by conservation workers in central India. Colby's research data was compiled and published posthumously. While India mourned Colby's tragic loss to one of its most dangerous predators, this series of deadly wildlife attacks serves as a stark reminder that nature's apex predators remain formidable forces capable of turning any wilderness encounter into a life-or-death situation. Thanks for watching. Want to watch more? Click on your screen now.